Okay.
That would be incredible if Peter.
Perfect. Yep. So recording
forward.
has started.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go over, I'm going to go through kind of A to Z, what our HRA system can do for you guys, for your existing clients that you do business with, right, for your benefits. Because I see, according to an email I saw from Michael, that you got some of your clients asking for an HR solutions, right? So let's check it out.
Yep.
So we're looking here, and we're currently staring at the employer level login. The employer level login, for all intents and purposes for your clients, is the highest level. They're the owners of the company. They're the ones doing the hiring, the firing, and all that fun stuff. Right below that, there's also a manager or supervisor login, depending on what verbiage you like. Now that login will have access to only view the employees that you assign them to view. In addition to that, you can restrict specific access. And what I mean by that is, all these modules up here at the top in the links, they're completely interchangeable. So let's say in a company, John's Barber Shop, Supervisor A, he takes care of all the time off requests, so he has that module. But we don't care for him to see everyone's timesheets, so he doesn't need to see the Payroll Center module. But the second supervisor, maybe he should see it all. And you can have that. You can have, so one supervisor only has these specific access for these people, and the other one has more or less. And then the last login below that, that'll be the employee login. Of course, the employees will have their own self-service module where they can go in, view their timesheets, view their paychecks, put in time off requests, update their address, so on and so forth. But for the demo purposes, we'll be hanging out in the employer login because it has all that and more. And by the way, feel free at any point to interrupt, ask questions, butt in. It's completely okay.
Perfect.
So we'll start off by talking about getting someone into the system, because more often than not, that's one of the most important things to do in a company, right, is to grow. And how do I do that here? Well, it's really simple. We streamlined the whole process. So within the module, the Applicant Center, you're going to have a couple links in here. Now, depending on how you guys set up your clients inside your own site, this list could look long like this, or you can make it short with just submit and review. Now, I'm going to talk to you about this real quick. The only reason you would have this full list here of add new job, setting up job categories, email templates, quiz center, recent jobs, is this: if you're giving that specific client in your site, and again, keep in mind, inside your guys' site, you can have multiple clients, completely different companies. One's a barber shop, one's a meat shop, one's a Blockbuster, because they still exist maybe. If you gave them this full list where they can post jobs, you're going to have access and give them access to your guys' site's URL's careers page. On that careers page, employers or future employees can go to view job postings for these different companies. Again, you can have as many companies in your site as you want. Maybe you have 5, maybe you have 50. Now, think about this. If you're allowing lots of different varied employers that have nothing to do with each other apply and put jobs on your careers posting page, it's going to look a little bit wild, right? You're going to have job postings for a barber, job postings for a butcher, and job postings for a video rental store. Might be confusing. We do have a way to make it so you can have a widget filter applied to their different core sites, so it kind of takes it to only Blockbuster's postings or only the butcher's postings. But at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, what our clients prefer to do, instead of giving them all free range to that one job posting site, what they do is give the multiple employers in your company the short version, which is Submit App and Review App. So you're not giving them access to post jobs online, you're just giving them access to put in short applications and immediately hire them. And for the most part, those employers will do their job postings via third-party sites such as Indeed, Craigslist, or Monster. Again, because everything's going to one posting site, it's kind of confusing. Much easier for you as a VAR to say, hey, all my new clients coming in, here's how you do it, and not opening up that extra level that might complicate things. Now, if you do have a client, maybe that John's Barbershop is very hard up on you guys to say, I really, really want my own personal job posting. What you can do then is turn that into a sales opportunity in the sense that you can provide to them or offer them their own custom site. So maybe it's johnsbarbershophr.com. Now, it's still owned by you guys, but they get their own URL where you put their data in there, and now they feel special. They have their own URL, their own front page, and their whole own job posting site just for them. And they might love that. Maybe that's what they desperately want. And that's how you can give that to them. In addition, if they want any crazy customizations to their site, that's how they could achieve that. They would need to be in their own separate little satellite site, or as we call it, custom site, in order to do that. So keep that in mind when you're relaying this information to your clients that you have right now. If they're wanting to altercate large customizations or have their own job posting, the custom site route is where you would want to steer them towards. Otherwise, they're fine to sit in what we call your pooled site, where you have your 50 different employers all sitting in the same URL. Do you have any kind of questions about that process or the difference between a pooled site and a custom site?
No, very clear.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go about this angle of attack with the simple, hey, I got my pooled site, I got 50 people in here. How do they get a new hire?
Oh gosh.
That's okay.
Sorry.
So what they'll do, let's say,
I'm so sorry.
it's all right. Tell me when you're all good.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Go on.
Oh, okay. So let's say, again, we're going to go down the path of, hey, we're in the pooled site. I've got 50 different companies inside my one pool site, and
Okay.
I need to hire someone. I just interviewed someone. His name's John. He's the best. I need to get him in my system. How do I do that? What the employer would do is they would come to the submit application area, and they would fill out this really, really basic, very front level information for that person. First name, last name, email, address, state, city, and zip. So I already know this information because I've already interviewed the gentleman that I want to be hired right now. So I put that in. Then I click submit application. Where that puts his information, puts him on this next page called review apps. This is where you'll see all the people that you've ever put in the system through that little short application. Now, in addition, if they had their own custom site and they had job posting available, this is where you could see who they are and what job they applied for on your job posting site. So you can see here, Haley Cat applied for the manager position that we posted. The people showing up as NA are those people that we put in that short way. Like here, I need you in my system now. Let's go click, click, click. Now, the next step, since we know we're going to hire that John fellow, or in this case we'll call him Test Mark, I submitted his basic information, his name, his address, nitty-gritty. I come immediately in here and I click that green hire check mark. And what that does, it's going to send an email off to Mark Test based off the email I put in the prior step, and it's going to give him his information. It's going to give him his username, a link to set up his password, and instructions to go into his employee portal for the very first time and start going through employee onboarding. Now what's important about that is that employee onboarding is done by the employee themselves. Now a lot of companies out there right now have quite a long laundry list of things you need an employee to go through to get them hired, right? Employee handbooks, user agreements, non-disclosure agreements. It's different per company, right? And they're all doing this via paper. Well, for an employee, when logging in for the very first time after getting hired via that green check mark and following their email, they're going to be taken to a page like this. Now I'm going to show you here picture in picture basically. What you're seeing in the bottom right is the employee's login. And I like to mirror them next to each other for a moment before I maximize this, because you can see how similar the employee's login looks like versus the employer's. They're very, very similar, albeit the employee login obviously has less options. Now when the employee logs in for the very first time, they're not going to see all these fun modules at the top. What we do is we have a way to force them directly into this onboarding here. Now the onboarding here is a very basic step-by-step process. You're going to force that new hire through in signing documents and filling out required forms for being legally hired, such as general information. They're filling that out for you. Where do they live? What's their address? Their social, emergency contact. The I-9 form. This form, W form, direct deposit, EEO, state tax form, we have these for you digitally and built so that the employee can easily be guided through and fill out what they need to fill out and lock the portions that they're not allowed to fill out, which then will be later handled by you at the later steps of being hired. Now it's worth noting that every single one of these documents you have them go through step by step. At the bottom of each page, when they sign off, you're going to collect their username, their name, the date in which they signed off on that form, and their IP address. And that treats as their electronic signature of completing that form. So for example, in this step, we simply loaded my company's employee handbook. They're required to look at it and then sign off on completion of it. And same thing for all these other required forms. Now when they're done going through all your onboarding documents, they're going to get to the summary. And once they're done with everything that's been required, they're able to click the Finish button. Once they click that Finish button, it's going to trigger an alert to the employer saying, hey, Mark Test is done with onboarding. Now they're ready to be finally hired. And before I move away from this too, this whole onboarding process, the order in which it appears, the number of items that appear, and what items load, completely up to you. You guys get to customize each one of your different companies that you guys are going to have in the HRA system, and they each have their own unique version of onboarding and the different documents they sign. Now let's head back to the employer login. And so I got that email saying, oh, Mark Test is done. Go ahead and go hire the gentleman. So that triggers me to do the next step. How that is I'm going to go over here to the Add New Hire area in Employee Info Center. And you can see here, when you're adding a new person to an HRA system, there's quite a lot to fill out, right? Just like you would normally do via paper. Well, luckily for you, our system is going to take care of everything for you because the employee took care of that for you. When someone's done with onboarding, their name will appear in this area, Select Employee, and only when they're completely done with onboarding, i.e. you got that email. When you select their name, all their information they filled out for you during the onboarding process automatically populates here in this Add New Hire section. And conveniently enough, everything that's required is taken care of for you except for the obvious ones. Obvious ones being pay rate and status. Because it doesn't really make sense for you to, during onboarding, say, hey, John or Mark, how much you want to get paid, right? So that's something that they can't fill for you. So you'll have to do those sections. And then at the bottom, you see here they're already given their next in line employee ID number, and you're able to click Finish. And for all intents and purposes, that employee is now completely hired, given an employee ID number, and they're in the system alongside all of your other employees in your Edit Employee listing. And they're ready to clock in and clock out and start getting paid. Any questions about the whole hiring process?
Looks pretty slick.
Thanks. So it's incredibly streamlined, right? So our goal at the end of the day is always make it easier for you, the employers, right? Less paperwork. Everything's going to be done for you if humanly possible. So least effort for you. So I'm going to hop in here and look at someone's profile. And we're going to look at all the different categories where we store and you can update information for an individual employee. So you can see here we kind of separate them between onboarding steps and normal admin steps where we store their data. This is where you, as the employer, can come in and finish the latter portions of your I-9, which will then be unlocked so you can fill out the Section 2 and perhaps even 3 if you're updating information. And then everything else in between. So again, the system's built for any kind of company, barbershop, butcher shop, or video rental store, or a call center. Down here at the bottom, we have a lot of different categories. Now, these different categories, they store different information based off payroll related, HR related, or just FYI related. And obviously not every company is going to use every one of these fields. For example, if you're dealing with maybe a call center, the call centers are pretty up to date with making sure, hey, who has what badge assigned to them? Who has what headset assigned to them or laptop, right? How are those companies taking care of that? A lot of times they're going to give you an answer about, oh, we just keep that in an Excel document on someone's computer, right? Well, they don't need to do that anymore because between this equipment field, you can store that specific information. Perhaps you're working in a big food industry, a big, nice, professional restaurant, big chain. And you need to, of course, make sure that some of your ServSafe managers are up to par with their food codes. And of course, everyone else has their food handler's card. Under our license tracking, you can store that information there as well. So there's a lot of useful extra fields in here to keep track of things that every day a lot of companies take for granted that they're not doing a very keen job on making sure that that data is up to date and in an easy to access manner. Now, what's awesome about this, between those different fields, basic demographics, accruals, deductions, their pay rate, their history, position, equipment, etc., all these fields you see here are going to be tied to a whole bunch of different reports. And that kind of takes me over to our report center. Now, inside our report center, we have quite a lot of pre-built reports, tying from former employees, what onboarding they went through, custom reports, and a whole bunch of pre-built ones that all tie to every single one of these individual fields. Now, for whatever reason, you're just thinking, okay, that's cool that I can easily pull up a whole report on who has what piece of equipment in my whole company. Pull up a report on what everyone's license is and what's expiring soon. But there's a specific report itch I need to scratch, and these reports don't do it for me. Well, our custom report writer touches all those fields we just talked about, but it lets you choose and pick what specific fields you want to report on in a certain manner. So, if for whatever reason one of our pre-builds aren't doing it for you, you can simply come in here and create the report of your dreams. And not only that, you can save it, so you can run it time and time again after you've created it once. For example, here, this accrual one. All the information will then should be shown down below. And it's worth noting, on every single one of our reports in here, you're always going to have the option to, 1, print the information, or 2, export it out to Excel like everyone's old favorite best friend that people are already doing things in. So keep that in mind in all reports. So the data is always available for you to use, ready to export or print whenever. And you're going to run into that situation or issue a lot with people who dealt with prior payroll systems or other HR systems. More often than not, they gate a lot of your information or reports behind a certain wall. You have to specifically request a report from one of the reps. That might take a day or two to get that, whereas in our HRIS system, it's just there. It's available. You can have it whenever you want. Any questions on the Edit Employee area or the Report Center?
No, it looks good. Reminds me of the old Access programming. Creating the forms.
Yeah, the Report Center, right?
Yep.
Now, we talked about getting someone in the system. Now let's talk about getting someone out real quick. So our system will take care of course, as much as possible to help you out in the whole termination process. So as you can see here, there's some pretty basic stuff. Who you firing, it'll pop over some of their basic information. And then you need to put in who it's being taken care of by, why are they leaving, and what's the effective dates. But there's something extra here called the checklist. And then down below we see some information. Now a checklist is our system's way of helping you take care of things in-house that you have to do. Now our system will take care of everything on the back end, like changing their status over, taking care of maybe they have any pending time off requests, updating benefit information and alerting the appropriate parties that this person is now fired. The system does that for you. But what about those things you do in-house? Like, oh, I need to make sure to take their name off the directory. Oh, I need to disable their email, right? Well, you can create these checklists and as many as you want to accustom to the type of person you're terminating. Because at that point, when you do this termination, that checklist is tied with that termination and the information you did for each step, such as, yeah, I did tidy up their desk, it's done, or it's pending, pending why, I'm going to do it next Friday, etc. And when you do this termination, all this information, if it was pending or done at the time and the notes associated with it, when you term them, is tied to that whole termination report. So you'll always have a clean, perfect record of, when I fired this person, I used this checklist. And according to this checklist, I did this, this, and this was not done. So there's never any question anymore about, hey, when you fired Dylan, did you get this key back? I think so. You can simply just go check your termination report and get that information. Any question on the termination?
No, it looks great.
Okay, so before I go into some of the other modules, what are you hearing or what do you think is going to be one of the most sought after or biggest drives for some of your clients to need an HR system?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can, just the pure ease of this and the organization of it, keeping them out of trouble for things that might be required by law. Yeah, I can see a lot of benefit to this.
Easy and audit-proof, right? That's key.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the other things that people love. Like, people often come to us because they need a solution for benefits, obviously. You guys have people that deal with admin work benefits, right? So what's great about our Benefit Center, I'm going to go right into the Benefit Wizard because I want to show you what it's like for the employee themselves, and then we'll go to the back end a little bit. So I'm going to assume identity as an employee inside of our Benefit Wizard. When the employees come into their Benefit Center, they're going to be able to view their information here in this Benefit Wizard drop-down. Now here, we're looking at the year 2016, and on the right side, I can see all the different steps I had gone through during my last open enrollment. If it was a new open enrollment, this thing will look incredibly similar, just all these icons will be white with nothing filled in. But as you can see, as I go through next to next to next, you'll see certain plans are chosen, certain plans are waived, and we can see here as they go in to check, oh, okay, I can compare, select, and when I do select, that information is updated here on the right side. That's my total, that's my number, my tally. So they can at a glance already tell how much is this going to cost them per pay period for the benefits I'm electing. Before I lock that into place, I might want to go back. Maybe I don't need dental, or maybe I do, maybe I can afford it. But you give us your benefit information, and we'll be able to assist you, or if you guys want to do yourself, build it on the back end so it shows here. So you can see here, I clicked on medical plan step, but clearly there's 3 different plans here, right? I can look at each one, compare their details, or open up the specific plan details. This will open me up to another PDF showing me the plan summary sheet. So I'll be able to do that for every single one of these. Is there one plan? Is there multiple plans? Do I want it? Yay. Do I want to waive it? Nay, right? As they go through each one, they'll enroll and waive. And once they reach near the end, they'll see their summary. They'll have an option to be able to check out how much is it costing me yet again, whom is being covered, the effective dates, what I waived, and print that off from my records. In addition, if you're dealing with certain carriers that have extra applications, certificates, that's where you can come and view that information here. By opening up and clicking on this icon, you'll get that proprietary extra form you can customize for you and digitize, so they no longer have to do it in paper, so it's all, again, taken care of for you digitally, and they're doing it.
Okay, now, caveat on that is you have to clear it with the insurance carrier if they can accept the online PDF application with electronic signature. So not every carrier will accept that. So some people on a small group, they would actually come in, see all the people that's enrolled, and just take the information and go into the carrier website and just enroll them.
Okay, I'll take a note of that.
Yeah, if the client is 125 or more in employee, we normally can do the HIPAA 834 EDI, where no application is needed. We just submit the eligibility per payday to the carrier. So.
Okay, good to know.
Thank you, Peter. So once the employee is done making sure that's all taken care of, any additional forms are taken care of, they'll be greeted once again with more, hey, are you sure? Let's submit that, lock it in place, or you can also print that off again. As the employee does that, it's going to lock their enrollment, it's in place, and we know exactly what they were offered, they know exactly what they chose, and how much it costs. That's important for 2 different reasons. 1, peace of mind, the employee should know what they have, but 2, this information, if you choose, we also have ACA module that can assist you. For Affordable Care Act, there's kind of a holy trifecta of information you need, right? You need to make sure what medical was offered to them. How much was that offered? Did they enroll? Did they waive? And what specific dates? You also need to know, of course, how many hours is someone working and their basic demographic information and so on and so forth. And since our system here, this HRIS, knows all that information if you're using our system completely, when you're utilizing our ACA module add-on, it's going to take care of that information for you. It's going to be able to populate those reports, figure out what works best for you for a modeling period tool. And then when it comes down to the specific 1095s, you bet that information in those forms will have that pre-populated in for you with the correct codes. Because again, we know how much they worked, we know what they offered, and we know what they chose because it's all here in the same system. So that's a big seller when you have these big clients that are scared when it comes to the end of the year with ACA compliance. We have a way to resolve that issue. So let's go on the back end real quick with the benefit center for the employer. So that's great that your employees can come in here and enroll that information, right? But what do I do with that? Do I take that somewhere? How do I get that information? Again, we have a lot of different custom reports for you to utilize here inside this Benefit Report Center, and more often than not, you're going to be checking out the benefit enrollment census, so you can create your own custom census report as well. This information you can take and export and hand to whom you need be, your carriers or for your internal documentation. Now, on top of that, we need to get this information over to whatever payroll they're utilizing, right? They said they wanted medical and it's going to cost them this much. How do I start charging them for that? Within our benefit deduction approval area, you'll easily be able to export the information that people enrolled in and send it over into your payroll software, or export it into a document to take to your payroll software to make sure that they're being charged the correct deduction code and the correct price for said deduction. Any questions or extra insight on what you would want out of the Benefit Center?
Nope, just soaking it all in for now.
Okay, so next I'm going to cover the Time Off Center. So our Time Off Center is another sought after solution that people don't have a great answer for. So inside our Time Off Center, it's very simple. Employees will have a balance that either tied and created here in the HRAS or tied to their payroll software. At that point, when the employees come in, they can view their balances based off their accrual policies. Maybe this company has 5 different accrual policies, this other one only has 1, maybe just vacation. As the employees go in, they can put in a time off request as simple as you, the employer, can for them. So I should kind of show you what that looks like. They'll go in, choose the policy, choose what days they want off, and note here some of these dates are in red. We have the ability to lock a specific date range, holidays, or weekends all together to stop an employee from attempting to take time off or put in a time off request on days that don't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense to request Saturday off when you know your company is a strict Monday to Friday, right? The employee comes in and simply puts in their amount of hours they want on each one of those days. They can see what their balance is for that accrual policy, and they can put in a note as to why they're taking that time off. As the employer, you'll get notification of these requests as they come in, and same as the managers. They'll be able to come into this other area, this dashboard I was at prior, view those requests, and go in and make action on them. To take action on any of these, it's incredibly simple as well. So let's open up this one. I can see Jenny Abel wants to take 40 hours off. She wants the whole week off. She says she's going on a mini staycation, and I'm inclined to approve it. She's a great employee, and she's got a huge balance. So I'll select the checkbox for each of the dates I'm going to be approving, and I can simply hit approve. Now what happens at this point is that the system acknowledges that I'm approving this time off request and is going to send hours, 8 each day for this week, using this specific pay code over to our timesheets. So the system knows to make sure it's appearing on the timesheets, appearing under a specific pay code, because of course when you take that information and that timesheet over to your payroll, it's going to deduct their balance, and it knows that this isn't normal regular pay, because that might not affect overtime, right? All those finite details when approving time off and making sure someone's getting paid the amount and their balance being deducted correctly, our system takes care of that for you in this simple front-end system. Now let's say for whatever reason I didn't like this request. Maybe we have a company policy that, you know very well, Jenny, but staycations should not be used for vacation. You need to use a different policy. Instead of canceling this and just saying, hey Jenny, put it in again, I'll approve it, I can modify this request and change the hours per day she's requesting and change even the different policies that she has available to her and re-put it in and then approve it. Jenny Abel, of course, will be notified that this has been approved, yet it's been modified, and she can even cancel it on her own right, even after it's been approved. Maybe she says, you know what, Mike, if you're going to make me use my sick time instead of vacation time for a staycation, I don't want to take it at all. She can go cancel her own request, and those hours will be removed from the timesheet as well. Other nice features of our accrual center, as I mentioned before, we do have the easy ability of locking specific date ranges. Maybe you're a Best Buy, you're going to want to make sure you're locking that Black Friday, right? No one's going to take that day off, or you hope not. You have easy reports to check out changes. Hey, in the whole history of this time period, what changes has happened to this person? Who approved what and when and where? We have access to all those tracking reports. And one of the nicest features when you're working in a very heavy departmented company is you can pull up a visual calendar of everyone's requests. So this calendar will let you choose any month, any date coming up, and you'll be able to have the information for who's taking what time off. And you'll even be able to see, based off the color coding of the requests and the icons, specifically what pay code they were using for it and if it's been approved or not. So again, this is great for managers. I work in a specific department. I can only see my employees on this calendar, and maybe you have a company policy of only 2 people per department per day. When you're looking at this list here, it doesn't really scream out at you that 2 people are taking the same day off, right? And that's what that calendar's for, an easy visual aspect of that. Any questions on our time off center and how it relates to any other part of the system?
Nope. Sounding really great so far.
Okay. So next, we're going to take a gander at our timesheets. Now our timesheets has a lot of extra features such as manager approval, employee self-service approval, releasing that information, so on and so forth. But the bulk of it is, of course, checking out your punches, making sure your punch is okay, and how easy is it for me to manage that information. Now, there's a couple different ways that are pre-built into your system for employees to clock in and clock out. Employees will always have the option of using our simple web portal, just like their employee login. They'll have the option to click on time clock instead of employee portal. That time clock will take them to one of 2 different versions, a standard clock in, clock out, lunch in, lunch out button. Very cut and dry. The other version is a weekly time card where they can put in their time for the whole week, usually reserved for managers or people on the go a lot, so they can fill out their information for days prior at the end of the week. Now, no matter how they're putting their information in the system, one of those 2 different ways, all those punches will automatically come here into your timesheets. Let me pull up a big range of punches here for you. Now, we also do have a mobile app that we work with. That information, of course, will come straight in here, and they can also check out time off requests with that mobile app. That does require an extra customization for us to get that going for you. Also, we do partner with a handful of different physical time clocks. So if one of your companies is really hard on to make sure they're having that, a biometric clock, a swipe clock with badges, we can integrate with that software so the punches and the times they utilize with that system come straight in here. You don't have to do anything extra. So again, we offer a lot of different ways for punches to come in. And it can be mixed. You can have 5 people on time card, 10 people on the mobile, and 2 people on the standard in and out. Punches still come in here and look the same. So the process is as simple as 1, 2, 3, review the finished summary, and export that file to your payroll. Now when you're looking at the punches here, you can see some basic information, and you can already tell that 2 of these punches are being changed as far as their color, one being yellow and one blue. Our system's going to automatically flag punches of interest. So up here you can see the key. Yellow means incomplete, blue means days from prior period for OT calculations. So that's important to know. Even though it won't be paid for the system, it's still affecting the punches later. So that's highlighted in blue. This yellow punch is incorrect because it's invalid. The reason why it's invalid is because clearly Jenny Abel here, or Adnan here, clocked in at 9. He forgot to clock out, resulting in a non-time punch. Now we still have some data here, so it recorded it, but my system's going to be nice for me and flag that. Same thing for invalid. So no longer are the days of you scrolling through hundreds of punches as an employer to figure out, man, I need to delete all these messed up punches before I send it to payroll and that causes an error. Our system will flag it for you. You can also run a simple report such as missed punch report to pull those up and fix them if you need. Now fixing a punch is really easy. If you come over here, click the pencil icon to any of the punch, you're able to pull up the information for said punch and play with it as you please. I'm going to add a timeout here. On the same day, let's do 7/17/2016. It's going to add a note here too. Fixed your punch for you, friend. We're going to update this. And now that punch is no longer yellow. It is now white. It's a normal punch. It has a normal in, normal out, time, hours. And you see here we have a 1 in this little piece of paper icon. What that tells you is that there's a note attached to this punch. When an employee puts in a time punch or goes to view their time punches in their employee portal, they have the option of adding notes to all their punches. So for example here, on this John Ab one, he's letting us know, even though there's no punch clock in and clock out, he's letting us know that he actually took lunch from 12:30 to 1. So then we can know to fix that punch. Employees can't edit their punches, so it's important for them to let us know a log and a note system for what edits they need. So they're not making it so they're completely useless and you can still take care of everything at the end of the week as the manager or employer. Going into step 2, the finish summary. Oh, go ahead.
When an employee writes in a note, is there some notification that comes to the manager?
There is not an automatic email. There's no automatic email alert for the notes, but they'll be painfully visible when you're going through your list here, that there are notes here available for you.
Perfect.
So let's say you go through your list, make all your tweaks, make your adds, make your edits, and you're ready to roll. Everything looks golden. You're going to go to the finish summary report, which is going to compile everything. No longer are you going to see 20 punches from one person. It's all going to be laid out per pay code they were given. So you can see here John Ab has 2 because he was paid some hours with reg and some hours with a different code. Same here for Jenny Abel. But the most important thing when you're looking at the finish summary compile is the very bottom. The very bottom of the page in the gray will show you the totals for the different codes, reg, OT, miscellaneous, etc., and total. And usually people just come here to take a gander at the bottom of the page and say, that looks like a normal pay period for me. They'll be able to then go to export payroll file, and that payroll information in whatever file format is needed for that company will be sent to the specific email for you to take that payroll file and load into the payroll software of their choice to process this time. Now in addition to that, we have some custom reports down here. Time audit just shows you normal punches without specialty punches, i.e. holiday pay and time off requests. Missed punch report we talked about, it's just going to show you the yellows. Custom report, you get to choose what shows up, such as reg, OT, double time, etc. And tracking report. So tracking report is really nice because this is going to show you the down and dirty nitty-gritty details of every punch, every edit, and every altercation in your timesheet. So you can see here, we can see the true time in and time out. And what I mean by true is that we have a lot of settings here for your timesheet. How often are they paid? What's your pay period start date? What's your overtime rules? What are your double time rules? Or rounding rules? So on the timesheet, if we had a rounding rule of round to the nearest 5 minutes, this punch here would probably show up as 12:15, right? But our system will still log the true time. So I know that Jenny Abel truly clocked in at 12:14, albeit the clock says 12:15. In addition to that, I can see who added that punch, what their employee login verification was, the action of that, the date, and the IP address in which they did that altercation. Next, we have an approval report. So I mentioned this earlier. Managers and employees have the ability to put in their approvals. And if you have any employees that are going in and approving it on themselves on their employee portal, you'll see their name logged in here. In addition to that, we have a manager approval report on the page right before this. So maybe your company policy is, hey, head honcho employer, don't pay anyone until your three managers say their people are good. You can cross-reference that report, see they're all saying yes for this pay period, and then you as the employer, then you do your last edits and reviews before processing and paying your employees. Any questions on our timesheets or clocking in and clocking out options?
None so far. Looking good.
So we'll wrap it up here and kind of breeze through and we'll go to the HR Center. So I had mentioned earlier that we have a way of paying for company holidays and for it to appear on your timesheet. When you inside your HR Center company holidays define your company holidays, rest assured if anyone is set up to receive holiday pay inside their employee demographics information, they will automatically be given holiday pay for the appropriate hours right here on the timesheet. So no longer do you have to panic when it comes to Christmas time. Oh, did all my full-time people get paid for holiday pay? I need to make sure. System does it for you now. We have other really handy tools such as our file cabinet. A file cabinet is like our digital version in the HRIS side here of Dropbox if you've ever used it before. But it's for just your company. You as the employer can come in here, add as many folders as you want, folders within folders within folders, and you can set restrictions and access on each one of those folders, meaning, okay, managers can see this folder and add new data to it. Or this specific employee gets his own folder with their name attached to it that only they and their managers get to see. You can set up those restrictions, and again, it's now your own personal company Dropbox. What some companies also do with this area is that they often have a lot of old archived data or scans that they keep locally on their PCs, right? Well, no longer do they have to panic about, oh, what happens if my hard drive fails? Now all these scans of everyone's documents are gone. They can load this information here in their file cabinet, and it's stored within our cloud services, which virtually never ever go down, and we're backed up multiple times a day, and their data is safe in their HR site. Next, we have a area for performance reviews. So our performance review module is pretty robust. Not only can you set up goals and add kudos for an employee throughout the year, the whole process of getting the review complete, it's a full 360 module. And what I mean by that is when you're going through a review system, the employer sets it up for you initially. The then supervisor goes in and assigns what questions will be asked of that employee and then scores them. Once the supervisor is done, the employer will check it off, and then it goes to the employee. The employee then scores themselves based off the questions that the supervisor gave them and makes comments and notes. It then goes all the way back to the employer once again for him to give them the final score. So it'll involve all parties, the manager, the employee, and the employer in the whole grading process. On top of that, we also have an area for employee warnings, which is also a 360 module. And again, that means it's going to be involving multiple parties. In this case, either the manager or the employer and the employee. And why it's important that it involves the employee is the fact that when you put in a violation, you can not only put down the violation and action be taken, you can categorize it. In addition to categorizing it, you get to put down, is this their first, second, third, or final warning on file? Now, when this goes to the employee is given and notified via email that they have a warning, and when they log into their portal here, they will be able to see that they have a warning, and they're required to sign. They're giving two options when they have to sign. They're either going to say something along the lines of, I viewed this and I agree with it, or I viewed this and I disagree with it. Either way, we're still getting their signature that they saw that warning, which in turn, as you saw before, we categorize as a first, second, third, or final. So now we have a signed, documented paper trail with their IP address of where they signed it, that they acknowledge and they view that they knew they were on first, second, third, and final warning before termination. And now all of a sudden your unemployment claims and cases are much, much smoother. Any questions on anything inside the HR Center?
No, that was very helpful.
So one of the last things I want to cover, we do have an area for workers' comp. It's very easy for you to put in claims. It's going to help you with a specific information for an employee by filling out what we can for you. And then down below, it's going to help you figure out, what do I need to write down? What do I need to document for this accident, this case, with all these plethora of questions and selectable fields. Of course, when you put this information in and save it, it'll be stored in the HRIS and will email the pertinent parties, such as the broker and the employer of an accident happening on a case. Also, we have a scheduling center. So in case you have an employer out there, one of your clients that has a very hectic work schedule that changes all the time and they have a hard time keeping it down pat, our scheduling center is very user-friendly. You can literally create a whole schedule, copy it from week to week, and then drag and drop shifts from one person to the other to make it ultra easy to kind of play around with your shifts when things are changing up week to week. So let me import one here real quick and show you. So you see here, example that you can also color code everything too. Maybe pink are all the people in pink are your janitors, orange is something else, blue is something else, right? And you can literally drag and drop a shift from someone to somewhere else, and it'll give you a confirmation message of, hey, are you okay with moving the shift to that person? And you can click OK, boom, now that person has the shift. Also on the left side, you can see a summary of how many shifts they have, their hours. Employees can also empower themselves by painting you a pretty picture of what they prefer working and what they don't prefer working. So when you're building your new schedule or a shift bid is coming up, the employee can let you know they're actually Garfield and they hate working Mondays, and they'll put this whole section in red to let you know, yeah, I don't want to work that. And maybe you'll be nice and not schedule them Mondays. So a pretty robust system, and you're able to publish this. Employees will get an email of their schedule and they'll be able to view it online as well. Okay, any questions or something you were hoping to see that we had that you didn't see during this overview?
Well, I wanted to look at our PMHR services and understand what that is. Is that like a very simple version of what you just